Hello. In this video I'm going to show you how to use pivot tables to analyze some air quality data. First we're going to go to the US EPA air quality data site and download some data, and then we'll use pivot tables to do 3 different tasks in Excel. Here I'm at the air quality data website for the US EPA, and I want to scroll down, and under the download data category there's 3 different options, and we're going to download some daily data. I'm going to use a PM 2.5 or small particulate matter as an example. I'll go with the latest full year of data, 2021, and I'll collect some data from California, and then I'm going to select a site, which is Los Angeles County, and I want all the sites, and I'm going to get the data. Click on this to download the CSV. So now I've opened the file in Excel, and I'm ready to use pivot tables in order to get a list of sensors and sites. As you can see, the file contains a lot of columns, a lot of data. And so a useful task is to go into the Data menu and click on Filter. And then I can go through the individual columns and determine which columns I want to keep in my analysis. So some of these columns, for example, the units, it only has a single value, so that's probably not something that we want to carry forward. Okay, so I'll click on that to get rid of the drop-down menus. And something that I like to do when I use a pivot table or do other kinds of analysis in Excel is to keep this raw data separate in case I need to go back to it. So I'm going to rename this raw data, and I'll create a new worksheet, and I'll call that selected data. It'll just have my columns that I need in it. So I'm going to go ahead and identify those. I've got date, also POC, which is the sensors, the daily measurements. I'm also going to select the daily AQIs and the site IDs, also the site name. Okay, so I'll copy those. And paste them in. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and insert a pivot table. So I go into the Insert menu, click on Pivot Table, and Excel automatically identifies the data frame that we're going to use. And I want to put this into a new worksheet, so I'll hit OK. And this is the pivot table view. Over here on the left is where our pivot table is going to go, and on the right is a menu of variables that we can use in our pivot table. Since I want a list of sites and sensors, I'm going to click on the site ID, also the site name, and then also the sensors, which are identified as POC. Okay, so it creates this nested table that you may or may not like. I'm going to go ahead and change it. So I go into the Design menu and start clicking on the options that I want. So I'm going to turn off or click on Do Not Show Subtotals. I'm going to turn off the grand totals for rows and columns. I'm going to show it in tabular form, and I'm also going to repeat all of the item labels. And this creates a table that's useful for further analysis. Okay, so right away I can see how many sites I have, and then also which sensors are at those sites. So as an example, the Azusa site has 2 sensors, and the sensors are identified by numbers. So they have sensor 1 and sensor 21. On the other hand, the Los Angeles North Main Street site has 5 sensors, and these are all for PM 2.5. Okay, so this gives me a list of all of the sites and sensors for Los Angeles County. Okay, so that's our first pivot table. So I'm going to call this one Pivot 1. Okay, so I want to go back and create a new pivot table. And this one is to organize, or the purpose of this one is to organize the data by site. And I'm going to go ahead and average all of the different sensors together. So go back to selected data, go to insert, click on pivot table, create a new pivot table. I'm going to call this one Pivot 2. And I want to organize my data by date. And let's see, so I've got the months and dates automatically shown. And so I have to go over here and click on expand. And we want to expand the entire field. Yeah, so that we have separate entries for each day of the year. Okay, and then I also want my site name to go in the column so that I have each column contains PM 2.5 data separately. And then the daily mean data is going to go here into values. And it automatically creates a sum. So I need to go into here to value field settings and change it to average because I want to change or want to average it over the various sensors that are used at each site. Now again, I've got this nested table format. So I go through these settings in Excel and create a table that's formatted the way I want it to be formatted. Okay, so this gives me the PM 2.5 data averaged over all the sensors with each site containing data separately in a different column. Okay, so that's the second pivot table. Third pivot table I'm going to create is going to produce a summary statistics table by site. So go back here, go into insert, click on pivot table, hit OK. And then this time I don't want to use date because I want to average and produce these statistics over the entire year. But I do want the sites separated. And so I'm going to go into here and use the average. So we have average. And then I'll do that again. And I want these values to be in rows, so I put that over here. And for this one, I'd like to show let's see, the min. Okay, it's a little tricky, but we'll get this. And then I also want the max. And then one more value. Standard deviation. Okay, so now I've got a nice table of summary statistics for PM 2.5 and it's organized by site. Let's do, just for good measure, we'll rename this Pivot 3 and then pull it to the back. There we have it. Now we have an Excel sheet with air quality data, PM 2.5 from Los Angeles County for 2021, and we've used 3 pivot tables in order to organize the data. Thanks.